Hi, I'm Andy. Welcome back to Play It Loud. I want to talk today briefly about vinyl collecting. You vinyl collectors, I think you can see that I fall into that category. But I'm hearing recently that there's a category of vinyl collector which has exploded, and I'd love your comments on this. There are apparently a lot of people, maybe it's you, who's buying vinyl and not playing it. You're storing it away, you're putting it in a dark place, you're keeping it wrapped, you're keeping it under wraps. And I can only assume that you're doing this for one of two reasons. There may be those of you who, I don't know, you at college, you haven't got room for a turntable, you haven't got the space. You're living with your parents, maybe the same thing. You're maybe just retiring and you want to get back into vinyl and you're buying the vinyl, but you haven't yet got round to buying the turntable to play it on. I get that. I think that's entirely reasonable. But if you're one of these people who's buying vinyl and putting it in a cool, dark place, I'm going to ask why. I'm guessing, and I am only guessing, that you must be doing it because you think that your vinyl will hold its cost and maybe go up in price, and that it's an investment. And it may be, but like every investment, it will depend on supply and demand. I've talked to people in the industry recently, and they tell me that in one particular shop, and they sell a huge amount of vinyl, they estimate nearly 50% of their vinyl sales are going to people without turntables. Now that is going to equate to a lot of supply in the future. I don't know. Are you one of those? Please let me know. Excuse me. Okay, so where do you go if you're going to collect vinyl? Very much my opinion. I have to stress that. I think I've been around a bit and I think I've got a bit of vinyl, but I play mine. If you've got a Taylor Swift rarity, record store day collector's item, it's unlikely to come down in value very much in the near future, possibly in the longer term. And I know some of these are fetching really extraordinary amounts of money, but she's an exception. It's an exception. Pick up one of her albums, which will have sold, I don't know how many million, lots of millions. Expect that to go up in value. Sorry, I think you're kidding yourself. No, it has to be a rarity. What constitutes a rarity? In my opinion, nothing from 1985, 1990 onwards falls immediately into that category. And I stress immediately, because there are exceptions. The reason I say this is because that was the time when records were started being made exclusively digitally. And anything that's on a digital file can be re-released at any time that the company feels that there is a demand for it. They can, drop it to disc, drop it to vinyl, put it on cassette if cassettes take out, but they can do it whenever they like. And that's a problem if you've got something that's digital, gone from digital to LP, and you stored the LP, and in 3 or 4 years' time, the LP's re-released. Maybe this time with bonus tracks, different pictures, hand-signed, whatever. It's kind of come out again. So, where do we go from here? What do you collect, and why should you collect it? I've already touched on this. I think collectors of vinyl should really hone in on analog recordings. That's pretty much anything pre-1985, some after that. But early recordings made from the tape at the time, within a year, 2 years of the album being made, sound very often fantastic. Certainly UK and Europe pressings do. I'm not confident that USA pressings do. I'm told, and please, I'm only told, that US pressings in the 60s often left a lot to be desired. We were fortunate, we didn't have that problem. So if you can get hold of those records and they're in very good condition, they can't be changed. You can't remake it. You can't, let me give you an example. You can't remake those. You can do a copy of them, you can make a digital version of them, you can put them in a box and you can put a book with it and you can change it around. But this Garrard loft cover rare Beatles, it's rare because there aren't many of those left, and it was pressed in, I don't know, 64, 65, somewhere around there. It's a historic artifact. And yeah, I've got Beatles box sets that were released last year, well, all of them, so they go back, 5, 8, 9 years, and they're really good, and they've got some great information from them. But are they going to go up in value? I doubt it, because they can be released again. What can they release again? This is Please Please Me from the Beatles in mono. I think EMI released 2 box sets of this, one when this came out 8-10 years ago, and one fairly recently. The recent one was limited to 3,000 copies and was only in a box, and it was snapped up. Again, it's about supply and demand. I think that the Beatles in mono from the original mono tapes are likely to hold their value. EMI are not going to do it very often. They don't want to do it very often because it's going to damage or at least wear the tapes. So yeah, there's an example of what you can do. But you don't need to go to that length. You can get something like this, the From Liverpool, the Beatles box. This was released by Reader's Digest. I think it's all analogue and it's relatively cheap. You can get this on Discogs for, I'd say, not a lot of money. You don't get the Beatles albums. What you get is 8 albums, which are, right, album number 1 has tracks from Please Please Me and from With the Beatles, but it's also got She Loves You on it and a couple of singles. That's how they've spread it out. But the sound is excellent. It's all analogue, and whilst it's going cheap now, I can't see that lasting forever. Okay, what else? Beatles. Those of you in America will know these. So while I've said don't go digital, go only analogue, why am I holding up 2 boxes of CDs? Well, this is the Beatles Capitol Album Volumes 1 and 2. It's got Meet the Beatles, the early Beatles, Help, Rubber Soul, second album, Something New, Beatles 65. I believe that this is the only way that you can currently get the original American Beatles albums as they were originally sold. And I can almost see somebody reaching for their comments sticker already and saying, no, they've released those. No, they haven't. This is a great box. I really like it. US mono. Of course, it's only the first 5 or 6. There's a couple of tracks on the couple of albums on the ones I've just shown you the CDs of that are not even in there. But whilst they've made a great job, the tapes were tweaked. The digital was tweaked. It's not the same as it was when, I was going to say your father, your grandfather listened to it first, whoever you are, 1964, 65. No, the Capitol Albums box set is the only way to hear the Beatles as they were originally released in the States. So why haven't you brought them? I don't get it. I really don't. Okay, back to digital and analog. So what else should you buy? We'll leave the Beatles alone for a moment. I'm going to suggest that, with exceptions, you should always go for analog productions, something that's been made from the tape. There are a number of companies, not many, but there are a number of companies who specialize in taking music from the tapes. And I think these albums will definitely retain their value. UHQR, Jimi Hendrix's first album, lovely packaging. I'm not going to go through it. If you're a record collector, you know how they work. But it's very expensive. However, it's likely to retain that cost, if the cost is what it was. I think the UHQRs and Analog Productions are well worth it. So what isn't worth it? I've shown this before. Donald Fagen's Night Flight MoFi. It was the second MoFi release when they were testing the water to find out how much they could get for an audiophile record. And I think that's currently worth several £100 if I was choosing to sell it. I'm not. But it's a digital file, and everything that MoFi have released in the last 15 years, something like that, is from a digital file. And if it's from a digital file, they can release it again tomorrow. But if it's from an analog file, if it's from a tape, the chances of it being re-released again tomorrow are slim. So you want to collect the UHQRs, collect the Analog Productions, collect the original discs if they're in good condition, particularly European ones, good cover, good inside. Yeah, I think you'll hold on to your value at worst. If you're going to collect anything that was recorded digitally, sorry, even though it's gone to LP, I think you're up the Khyber without a canoe. English phrase. Listen, thanks for listening. Do appreciate it. Please subscribe. Please tick that box. Until you see next time, this is Andy Andrews saying goodbye. Cheers. A little more while we're on the Beatles. Beatles CDs. You can see that this is Revolver. Go into any shop, go into Amazon, and you can get, I think these are the 2009 Beatles CDs, 2009 pressing mixture, whatever you like. But I think these might actually go up in value. And I'll tell you why. It's really simple. If you go and buy a copy of this today, you will get the Giles Martin remix. It doesn't say so on the cover. There is nowhere to suggest that it's not an original Beatles Revolver as heard by the Beatles. But it's not. It's Giles Martin's version. And it's different. I like Giles Martin's versions, but it's not original. So how do you tell what you're going to get? These original copies, they all came in a sort of gatefold. They all came with a little booklet, and they all came with a little DVD extra on the CD. So you can tell these from the version that you're going to get off of Amazon tomorrow. These, I think these will go up in value because they're going to release them again. In a few years' time, if you buy any version of any Beatles album, it's going to be a Giles Martin remix. It's not going to be this. So you won't get to hear this. I don't think that the streaming services are doing both copies. They just do the Beatles, Let It Be, Revolver, Sgt. Pepper, so on and so forth. So be careful. Choose carefully. Beatles and everyone else.